Okay, sounds good. All right, well, thank you for coming. My name is Jessica McLean. I'm a subject librarian here at Alkek. The subjects I work with are engineering, technology, chemistry, physics, and material science. And earlier this year, I had the opportunity to take an online course for librarians where I got certified in using Scopus. This is the first time I'm going to be teaching this session, so hopefully it goes well, and I would appreciate your feedback later on as we at the end. When you signed up, it may have been an hour-long session. I did extend it to 90 minutes. If you need to leave after the hour, no problem. We are recording. I have hit record, so we will have a record of this later on if you need to catch the last section or two. So, and a little outline of what we're going to cover today. I'm going to give you a brief introduction to the Scopus database, what's in there, why you would want to use it, the benefits of it versus its competitors. Then we're going to have everyone create an account if you haven't already. There are some great benefits to creating an account, saving your searches, monitoring your alerts, claiming your own author profile. And then we'll hit these main points of the main features of the database. I'll give you a quick introduction, a couple of demonstrations, and then I've written up a couple of quick activities for you to try just to get a little bit more comfortable using each of these things. Since we are recording and we have some people on Zoom as well, if you could hold your questions until the end of each section, we'll try and address those then, just so I stay on track and don't take too long on this. And I will be watching the chat as well in case there are any questions remotely. So, what is Scopus? Scopus is an index database, the purpose of which is to kind of look at the research landscape from above, looking at connections between research, connections between researchers, and connections between affiliations and organizations, to kind of see what kind of trends there are within research and between different subject areas. Since we're looking at these broader terms, these broader subjects, these broader bodies of work, this is not necessarily a database I would send an undergraduate to for their 5-source research paper. You will certainly find articles in this database that you would want to cite in your research, but generally we're looking more at the bigger picture. What is interesting about Scopus is the way it selects its content. You can see here they have 24,000 active titles from 5,000 publishers, a total of 50, I can't count any numbers today, 75 million individual items. And the way those are selected is from their independent advisory board. So there are international experts around the world who come together to select what they consider to be the most important titles in their subject area. That's what's included in Scopus. So you may find some unusual things in there, some smaller journals that maybe are not quite as well known. You're certainly going to get a good international variety of content. And Scopus really prides itself on its metadata, so we'll look at that in a little bit too. Looking quickly at Scopus compared to one of its competitor databases, Web of Science, they both have a similar purpose. Both are looking at kind of the impact of research, the reach of a particular paper, or the amount of citations a particular thing gets. But there are a couple of key differences between them. A similarity that I hadn't noticed until I made this is that they do actually use the exact same color of orange in their branding, which seems strange with their competitors. So Scopus is owned by Elsevier, which, if you're not familiar, is one of our big academic publishers. It integrates really well into other Elsevier products, including Science Direct, Engineering Village. I mention those specifically because I work with those subject areas. But Scopus is not a science database. It includes a really wide variety of subject areas. It is science heavy, but it's certainly not science exclusive. Web of Science has a similar problem. We had people from Clarivate Analytics, which owns that database, come to visit us and said they Wish that was not the name of the database, because it's also not just science. Clarivate Analytics is part of Thomson Reuters. Web of Science has a platform that integrates a lot of different databases as well, and it is also built into the EndNote desktop software. The key difference, I think, between the two is the way they select their content. We already talked about Scopus, how it's experts selecting specific titles. What happens then is Scopus uses their specific metrics, site score, SJR, and SNP, to rank those journals. So they select first, and then they rank. Web of Science, on the other hand, has its own metric, which is impact factor. They rank the journals with impact factor, and then select the top ones to include in Web of Science. So it's kind of the opposite selection method. They're looking for only the top ranking. Scopus is looking for content, and then ranking the content. Impact factor is a proprietary metric of Web of Science, so I'm going to try not to say impact as much as possible today, but it's just kind of like unavoidable. It's the best word for it. And we'll talk more about what site score, SJR, and SNP are in a moment. So I would say when you're looking at rankings between the two, between Scopus and Web of Science, you will see quite a bit of difference in what they consider the top journals. And that's for really three reasons. One is the metrics are calculated a little differently, so the numbers will actually be different. The next is obviously how they select their material. So some titles may be in one database, but not in the other at all. And then they also define their subject areas differently. So something that is the top journal in plant science in one may not be in plant science at all in the other database. So I think it's interesting to compare between the two in your subject area and see what are the differences, what are the top journals in each one. Okay, that's the end of the little first section. Any questions so far? Yeah.
I've been familiar with Web of Science for a very long time. And you had predecessor with the social science citation index and some other areas. How long has Scopus been?
That's a great question, and I have that information, but I don't have it in front of me. I think it has been around for a while. There are definitely kind of tie-in products that Elsevier has that we have access to. One is called Simago, and one's called Scival. We don't have access to that one. Those are newer products. I think Scopus has been around for a while, and it certainly has coverage going back a long way. But I can't tell you for sure exactly when Scopus began. All right. So let me go ahead and open up the browser because we're going to get right into looking at this database. Hopefully you all got to the library homepage. The easiest way to get Scopus from here is to go under Research Databases over here in this blue box. And the best option is just S for Scopus. You can also search by name, but it goes slowly sometimes, and I try to avoid that in sessions like this where someone's watching me. And so I think it's number 23 on the S list. Yeah. While we're here, I'll just reiterate what we say every time. All of our databases are accessible on and off campus. As long as you go through this page, you'll be connected to our subscriptions. We'll create an account in a moment, and that will affiliate you with Texas State, but it doesn't give you access to our subscriptions just by logging in. So you will have to go through this page to use our full text finder to get a hold of those full text PDFs. So let's open up Scopus. Okay, this is what your main Scopus page will look like. We have our search in the middle, some more features at the top. But what we're going to do before we even start is create an account if you don't already have one. I did already mention at the beginning some of the benefits of creating an account would be saving your searches, managing your alerts, creating lists of favorites, and setting your preferences for export. So we're going to create an account using this button at the top. The email address you use does not have to be your Texas State email address. Since you went through our subscription link from the library homepage, it will associate you with Texas State. I tested this yesterday. So you're going to enter your email address, and then it'll send you an email asking you to create a password.
Well, it gave me the page to create an account, and I clicked on it, and it gave me an error. Control A back to it.
Create an account up here. So I'll just give everyone a couple minutes to put in their email address, check their email, make sure everything's working correctly.
According to Wikipedia,
Yeah,
Scopus launched in 2004.
2004, okay.
That's older than that.
I thought it was older than that too, but 15 years is pretty good. Yeah.
Do we trust?
That's true. That's true.
Sure we do.
I already have an account, I'll go ahead and log in. Has it worked for most people in the room so far? We're waiting for some stuff.
We have 2 accounts.
Oh, well, I have 2 accounts now too. I tested it out yesterday. Yeah, that's not gonna cause any problems. Okay. Great, so let's take a look at the account information over here on the right. It's hidden under, on our screens up here, the video window. But there are 3 lines in the top right corner. If we click, it's going to show us our account options. Under My Scopus, you'll see you have your dashboard, your saved searches, alerts, and saved lists. These will save as we go along today. If you see anything interesting, you can save it to your lists. My organization should say Texas State. And then you also will be able to set other preferences as we go along later. So this is just going to allow you to get the most out of Scopus.
Are we doing this, sorry, I came in late, doing this through Texas State?
Yes, you have to go to Texas State. You don't have to use your Texas State email. All right, we're logged in. We're ready to go. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the sources. Since we talked about the unique way that Scopus selects its sources, let's take a look at what sources it has selected. And up at the top, you'll see search, and next to it, you'll see sources. This is where we're going to click. It's right here at the top, and it's going to show a list of all of the sources included in Scopus. The number I gave you on my PowerPoint was about, I think it was about 24,000. The number here is 41,000. The reason is we're including different source types. There are journals in here, there are book series, there are conference proceedings, and there are trade publications. Each subject is going to have different content in there. On the left, we have a few facets to narrow down our search. We can select only open access journals. We can choose by quartiles, or the highest ranked ones, the lowest ranked ones, and again by source type. At the top, we have a subject area dropdown. This is not a search box because Scopus is very particular about its subject headings. They define the subject headings, and that's how things are organized. So it is a checkbox. You can type in to search within the checkbox list, but you're defined by what it lists under its subjects. For now, I'm not going to select anything, but later on, you can do a search narrowing down by a subject area. When we look over here at the right, we'll see the list of results, and it's sorted. You can see the orange arrow by site score. The site score was the Scopus specific metric that ranks the journals based on citation counts. We'll see specifically what that is in a moment. The site score, as with impact factor and some other metrics, does vary by subject. So some subjects will have much higher site scores on the whole than other subject areas. The top ones we can see in this list, the ones with the highest site scores, for the most part, are scientific, medical in particular. And there's just something about that field and the way the research works that really is benefited by the site score. Only journals can have a site score. A person does not have a site score. An article does not have a site score. This is a journal level metric. There are other metrics we'll see later on, but the site score is measuring the reach, the citation count of a journal. Next to that column, we'll see the percentile and the ranking within a particular subject area. Each of these journals might be in more than one subject, but it lists the one that is the highest ranked and right there. As you click through, and as we kind of click through a lot today, notice how many of these things are clickable. When you hover over them, they turn orange, and you'll get a little hover notification of what you're looking at. There are a lot of different ways to drill down into this information. There are so many different ways of sorting this and viewing this, visualizing this information. So just be aware that there are a lot of places to click and a lot of things to do. Let's go ahead and click through to this top journal and see a little bit more about what it can tell us about sources. So this is the #1 overall ranked journal, the Cancer Journal. Gives us a little information up here about this journal, coverage years, ISSN. It gives us subject headings. There are multiple. They're closely related. These are, again, defined by Scopus. We have the option to view all documents. That lists everything that's been published in this journal during the time period that's covered. We can set a document alert. What that will do is send you an email when you tell it to if something new is published in this journal. So let's take a look at what an alert box looks like. It names the alert after the publication. It has my email address, but I can also send it to someone else if I want to. And then my frequency choices are every day, every week, every month, and you can define the day of the week. This is something you'll manage under your My account. I can also save it to my source list. This is kind of favoriting this journal, just so you can get back to it more easily. You see the subject areas up here, hematology and oncology. Over down here on the right and the bottom, you'll see where this journal ranks in those subject areas. This is #1 overall, so of course it is also #1 in both of these subject areas. Other journals maybe are #1 in something, number 13 in something else, just because of the nature of those subject areas. It really depends. Over here, this bottom left area is talking about the site score. So this is again, the Scopus metric that's determining how these things are ranked. And it's a pretty simple mathematical equation. It is dividing the number of citations in the year 2018, so 20,000 citations in 2018, of any document that was published between 2015 and 2017, of which there are 126. So we're looking at 3 years of publications. How many times were those 126 documents cited in the year 2018? And it's just a simple division, and that's the number we come up with. This is kind of a moving target. Every year it's going to be a little different. And you can see that down in this dark gray box. This is a projected number for this year. Based on what's already happened this year, you can see it's actually lower. That doesn't mean that it's going to go down in the rankings necessarily. There's kind of just an ebb and flow in general to the research field. So it may be that everyone goes down about 40 points next year. And so it ends up still being #1. If we look under the next tab here, rank and trend, you can see this chart shows how that number has changed over the past 5 years. It has gone down then came back up again. But if you look at the red line across the top, you'll see the percentile never changed. Even though it went up and down, it was still pretty much the top journal every time. And we can double check that by changing this number 2018 in the CiteScore rank. I think this is interesting to note that even in the category of hematology, the CiteScore of 160 here is still 20 times higher than the next journal on the list. Like, this is a really impactful journal. It's just a massive number of citations. The next column, or the next tab here, is the CiteScore presets. CiteScore starts out by counting all documents that were published regardless of type. It does also give you the options to select out specific source types. So if you're not interested in review papers, you can take those out. It's also going to take out books, it's going to take out trade publications. So if your particular field cares particularly about articles and conference papers, we can only look at those. And you'll see if I select articles and conference papers, the CiteScore doubles again, because the things that are being cited from this journal are the articles and conference papers. 19,000 of the 20,000 citations. So they may have reviews, they may have, what's the other thing? Letters in there as well, but those are not the things that are getting cited. So you can change the presets and see how that affects the number. Last thing is this Scopus content coverage. This shows by year what documents were published. So you can see a list of them. Or you can see a citation overview. I'm going to look at 2015. This is showing me the papers that were published in 2015. It shows me when they were cited. So with medicine, there's kind of a drop-off often in citations. When they're new, they're highly cited, and then eventually they kind of drop off, which is a little bit what we're seeing here. Looking down at this list, this is a list of all of the publications from this year, and it shows a chart telling you which year each one was cited the most. Looking down at number 19, global cancer statistics, this is kind of the one that's accounting for a lot of those citations. In 2016, it's 2,700, then 4,000, 4,600. A single outstanding article can really affect the CiteScore for a journal. And that's why there are a couple other metrics to kind of even those out. Can you hold your question, or do you?
I just wondered, what did you click on to get there?
This is the under the Scopus content coverage,
That's fine.
and it's a citation overview for 2015.
Okay, thank you.
And again, notice what is clickable, the titles, each of these numbers over here. We can drill down to this information and slice it up in a whole bunch of different ways. Last thing I'm going to talk about on this page is this top right section, these three metrics that we saw. First was the CiteScore. We know what that is. We saw the equation there. The other two are intended to kind of level the playing field between subject areas and between journals. The SJR is a serial weighted metric, which means citations from higher ranked journals are weighted higher. So the number is smaller, but that may end up evening out generally across the subject area. Sarmago is one that we do have access to. It's a separate database in our database list. The other one is SNP, and SNP is a field-weighted citation measure. It compares the number of times this journal was cited compared to other expected citation counts in the field. So that should level out from something like history, which maybe has this low CiteScore because maybe 3 years is not enough time for the citations to really count up. That should give a pretty more fair, I guess, measurement across disciplines. The last thing I'm going to show you up here actually is in the very top corner, it says compare sources. Compare sources allows you to compare sources. You can select up to 10, and it can be whichever ones you want, and it will compare them on these different measurements. I'm going to enter a title, Nature Reviews Cancer, and select that one. And it is now the red line on this chart. So now I can compare the site score history of these two journals together. I also have these other options. The SJR metric, the SNP metric, citations by year, documents by year, percent not cited by year, and the percentage of review articles per year. I think this is interesting because we see here there's a big difference in site score, even though the Nature Reviews Cancer Journal has more citations because they also publish a lot more articles. They get more citations, but it's on more articles, so their site score number is lower. Again, you can select up to 10 to compare. And with this and the other visualizations we'll see later, you do have some options for exporting this data. Up here under export. Exporting to a CSV file will export the data into a table. It looks a lot like this one. So it'll just show you the numbers in these columns. That's the CSV option. The zip option is going to export versions of this chart. One, I think, is a PDF. I think is a PowerPoint. I think there's a JPEG. So you can have this exact image downloaded, or you can download the CSV and create your own graphs and charts with that information. All right. Any questions right now before we test this out? Checking the chat too. No questions? All right. So I've written up a couple of activities for each of these different features just for you to try it. Just to make sure you understand how to do these things. I'm not going to test you on this. It's just for you to play around with it. So I'm going to give you about 3 minutes, and I would like you to go back to that source list, choose a subject area, find out what the highest ranked journal is, and make sure you know how to tell which other categories that journal is ranked in, how many citations did it have in 2018, and whether or not the journal site score increased or decreased since 2017. The 3 minutes-ish will stop around 2:34. Yeah.
I was stuck on the early part and I couldn't keep up with you all.
Okay.
So I clicked on sources.
Mhm.
Where do I go?
To search the subject area, it's right here. So you'll click on there, and then you can search, and then it's defined by Scopus.
So I don't enter it, just a minute.
Yes, but you can type in to narrow it down since there are so many.
One psychology.
So go ahead and click on there and type psychology. And there are several different psychology options for you.
Okay, let's do social. Is there more?
Those are all of them.
That's
You
all
want
of them.
social psychology, John? I don't believe it.
Experimental, social.
Yeah.
Either general, I'll do social.
Yeah.
And then apply.
Mm-hmm. What other categories in the journal?
Click on the title and down on the right.
Can you select more than one?
At a time, you're gonna look, more categories?
Like
Yeah, you
experimental and
Yeah.
social?
you just gotta check multiple boxes.
Start all over, okay. Let's do this.
And then clicking on the title is what will clicking on the title of the journal is what will show you more information.
Okay, I pretty well know what it's called, so what do we do?
Just make sure you understand how to do those things and make sure you know where that information is.
Well, that's another question.
Yeah.
Did you already talk about this, or is this something you're gonna spend time about the difference in this and this?
I didn't explain it really, but this is the complete 2018 one. This is the projected 2019 one.
Ah,
So they just haven't, like, 2019 hasn't finished yet, so there's still be more citations to come.
gotcha.
I think
Okay.
I might have done this in a weird way, but it worked.
I mean, there are so many ways to do it. Some of it is just you making sure you feel good about it. That works, 42. I mean, it also is the top line on the site score. Click on site score now.
I need 32 citations. Why did that other thing say 42?
You
Oh,
probably
okay.
chose just ones from 2018?
Yes, I did.
Okay. All right.
Um,
So, yes.
I clicked the wrong thing to get 1718 trend.
No, you're perfectly right here.
Oh,
Just
there it is.
it just shows, yep, shows the number there. And so it went up a little bit.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and run through this again, just so we're all on the same page as far as how this will work. I'm going to choose back to sources. I'm going to go up here under subject area and select my subject area. I'm choosing linguistics. It's weird that there are two linguistics, one in art and humanities, one in social sciences. They're pretty similar. I'm checking to see which is the highest ranked journal. It is the Artificial Intelligence Review. Clicking on the title will show me that it's in both of the literature and or the language and linguistics categories. It's also under artificial intelligence. How many citations did it have in 2018? 652. That number is right here. And did the journal's site score increase or decrease since 2017? I'm going to check that on the ranking trend. And this one has gone up. It looks like quite a bit, but the numbers are pretty small in general, so I don't know what. All right. So we've talked about the source list. What questions do we have about the source list so far? There are no results for, let's see. There are no results for respiratory care. That is interesting. Let's take a look. Yeah, that is interesting. That would be.
Subject and then.
They had a different subject there.
There were two different subjects for respiratory care. Pulmonary and respiratory medicine. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think what may be happening here is that, I actually can't explain that. I can't explain that, but I will see if I can find something out and come up with an answer as far as why that might be. I might end up emailing them just to find out, because that does seem unusual if there is a defined subject area. Yeah. Seems like these would be the right journals for that subject area anyway. Interesting. Yeah, okay. But yes, I will check on that and find out more. All right, our next feature is the search. So you've seen what's in there, and we can do some searches now to get a little bit closer to our research topic. So the search option is at the top next to sources. One thing that's interesting about Scopus is it is pulling information from a lot of different publishers at once. And unlike other databases, Scopus does not have its own controlled terms. So where other databases might have a standardized thesaurus of terms, Scopus does not have that. So the keywords are not standardized across the articles. What it will pull in, though, are controlled terms from other places. So IEEE articles will come in with IEEE controlled terms. medical articles will come in with mesh terms. So it will have controlled terms, but there is not one overarching controlled vocabulary for Scopus, which means that we're going to have to keep our searches a little broader. And there is actually a function within the search that allows you to do that. It's a little different than our other databases. And I'll show you right here. So the example they give under the search is cognitive architectures. Cognitive architectures in quotation marks. In our other databases, that would be an exact search for this exact phrase. We'll keep those two words together in that order. In Scopus, the quotation marks indicate a loose phrase. So the exact opposite, the exact opposite of what we're used to. This is basically saying, I will take cognitive architectures or some related term, something close to that. So quotation marks will give you an approximate search. If you want an exact search, which you might, for institution names, for country names, if you need that phrase to be exact, we're going to use curly brackets instead. So, United States. That would be an exact phrase search.
Where are those brackets?
It is, let's take a look. Above the square brackets, to the right of your key.
I'm not in the right screen, so I thought.
So yeah, for some reason, sometimes you have to click a couple times before it actually loads that page that you need. So we're not actually going to do this search right now. I just wanted to point that out because that is a very unusual thing about Scopus. Instead, we're going to go ahead and click on this advanced button right here. We're going to look at the metadata that Scopus provides about all of this content. I'm going to go ahead and erase that. That's not, I was just an illustration. Over on the right, you'll see all of the different operators and field codes that we can use to build an advanced search. So we clicked on advanced, the word advanced.
Advanced.
Yeah. Right there, yeah. The top ones are your Boolean operators, your proximity operators. Clicking on the name will pull up a description and describe what the thing does. Clicking on the plus is what's going to add it to your search. This is something that I'm still not used to, and so I'm going to make a mistake, and we'll all learn together. But these are your operators, these are your field codes. The ones I want to point out particularly are the subject areas down here. We saw these in the source list, but this is just an illustration that it is science heavy, but there are a lot of social sciences as well. This database is pretty evenly split between these four categories. There's about 25% of each. Social sciences includes everything that's not sciences, basically. So if we open up one of these categories, we don't see a lot of options. We don't see very specific search options. But clicking on any of these names will show you a list of the subjects that are included. So under social sciences, we're seeing anything from archaeology, education, law, linguistics, a lot of different things. These are broad searches. These are just the broad headings that are going to help us sort subjects between different things. Today, I'm going to do a practice search on an engineering topic. So I'm opening physical sciences. I'm going to use the plus next to engineering. And that's now popped up in my query string. I'm going to make sure to add an and using the plus up here. Make sure your cursor is in the right place. It does this weird thing where it will start embedding parts of your string within other parts of your string. So just make sure your cursor is always at the end. The next thing I'm going to look at is affiliations. Affiliations is the second in the codes list. And this allows you to identify the author's affiliations. So selecting city, country, organization will give you results where at least one of the authors has that affiliation. It doesn't have to be all of them, but at least one. So if you were to choose Brazil for the country, One of the authors must be from Brazil, the other ones could be from anywhere else. So in my search right now, I'm going to do country search, and I'm using curly brackets for an exact search for South Korea. So one of my authors in the search results must be from South Korea. And I'm going to add another. I'm not going to use this right now for my search, but I also want to point out funding. Right here, funding. This is something that Scopus has collected about all of the research in there. It can tell you who sponsored the research. If there's a grant number, it will allow you to search on that. Funding sponsored will be the full name of the sponsor. The sponsor acronym would be the abbreviation. So NIH would go under acronym. National Institutes of Health would go under sponsor. I'm not going to use that right now, but that's a really useful, interesting thing to think about your research. I'm just going to do a quick loose search for drones, and this is my search. So in the subject of engineering, with at least one author affiliated with an institution in South Korea, I'm looking for the word drones.
And you're putting quotes around a single word.
I am, and I don't know that you need to, but it's just a loose search. I'm just saying, like, drones-ish.
I'm putting in drone
Yeah.
and say Alkek.
So I get 644 document results. On the left, we have the facets like you would expect to see in any of our databases. You can select open access only or any publications. We have year, we have author name, subject area. We're seeing again those same facets we saw in the advanced search, but this just may be an easier way of handling them than trying to put together an advanced search. So it may be that you want to do a simple search and then use the facets later on. I kind of just wanted to show you the facets in the advanced search. There are other things down here: publication stage, document type, source title. Keywords down here, these are the keywords that are assigned by other publications. And you can see my second option is drones, the fourth option is drone. They're not controlled. They're not controlled at all. So it may help you search, but really this is not a very precise search. We're not trying to find 2 or 3 perfect articles here. We're just trying to see the body of research on this topic, roughly. If we need to make changes, we're going to go to this edit button at the very top to edit your search query. That's going to take you back to the advanced search page. We also have the option to save this search, so this will be in your account. You can go back to it later on, it'll do the exact same search. We can set an alert. Again, we saw how the alerts worked: daily, weekly, monthly, for new publications that meet these search criteria. Or you can set an RSS feed. I don't think a lot of people do that anymore. When we look at our results, they default to sort on newest first. But I think one of the interesting things is to sort by cited by highest. Because we can see within these 644 articles, which ones were cited the most times. This is clickable, so I'm able to see within Scopus which articles cited this one. And that's what these citation counts are. It's only counting articles within Scopus that cited this one. So we're not talking about all citations. That number may be a lot bigger. We're only counting the things that are included in Scopus. And of course, we know that whatever's most cited is not the best paper necessarily, but it's interesting and it's worth looking at. So that's why it's interesting to sort that way. There are options for export. You're going to want to select the ones you want to export, and then your export options are right here. We have found there are some severe limitations to export. We were working with a researcher who wanted to find every paper published in Brazil over a 10-year period. It's millions, millions of papers. And he wanted every piece of information that there was. It's not possible to download that much information. If you want all of the information that Scopus provides, it will allow you to download that information for 2,000 articles. So if you're doing a citation analysis, it should be fewer than 2,000. If you want just citation information, so just this first column, it will allow 20,000. So a pretty good number, but still not everything's been published in the result. If you are exporting to a citation manager, Mendeley will allow 500 at a time. RefWorks or EndNote or another citation manager will allow 2,000 at a time. So there are limitations to how much you can pull out of here and put somewhere else. But there are ways around that by narrowing your search a little bit. The first time you make a selection here and hit export, that will save as your preference. So you don't have to make that selection again, it'll just default to it. So mine defaults to EndNote because that's what I use, and it defaulted to these two columns because that's what I exported last time. That's a benefit of you being logged in. Okay, before we click through, I know we're going very quickly and actually not going that quickly. I'm running out of time. How are we doing so far on the searching? We'll try some, yeah.
I mean, I did a search with like subject area, arts, affiliation, Texas State University, and then I did another limiter to arts, to subject area arts, like from this screen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was following you on the other screen, so I did that one there.
Yeah.
And then I did even United States, but these, they don't look like arts in there. Look at
Arts is a broad category.
Look at that one.
But if you look at if you go back to the advanced list and click on arts and humanities, it'll show you what was included in there, and it's a lot of stuff.
Where's it?
Back on the advanced search page, go to edit. And then down under subject area, click on the actual name, and it'll show you a list of. So there's a lot of stuff in there. So it's a variety. Plus some things are multidisciplinary, so they're gonna count as arts and humanities without really being arts and humanities.
Okay, it was bringing up like psychology
Mm-hmm.
documents too.
I've got a research program going on measuring international knowledge
Okay.
of undergraduate psychology students.
Mm-hmm.
So how would I find as much as possible published material on that?
So I think you did a great search there. So it's a precise curly bracket search.
Over 3,000 and
Mhm.
none of them seem close.
Scroll down, and we'll go ahead and select as view more subject areas.
Well, I'm not sure because I guess social sciences.
Mm-hmm. That'll narrow it down, and then make sure you limit.
Where's the limit?
There, so I think it should be at the bottom and the top. There. Limit to.
But it's really, what I want to know is international knowledge possessed by students,
Okay.
university students.
Well, we can search within the results as well, so you might search as well for students.
Oh, I see, okay.
So now you have it to 1100. You can keep searching and narrowing down from here.
But I haven't put students in yet, so
Right.
do I put that in?
Yeah, you type students right there.
Why did it drop down so quickly?
It gave you a space to search, like a typing space.
Okay. I want to know the knowledge possessed by the students.
Okay, and so make sure you hit your search here. And now you're at
So now we're
224.
224.
You're still on social sciences, so there may be some things that are not psychology. You may want to look within subject area for psychology specifically. If you look at view
Can we
more,
do psychology
there's a
right
view
here?
more.
Sure.
Yeah, so there's psychology. And we're gonna limit to again. Mhm. And so this is a very small
Yeah,
number.
that's getting closer.
But again, international knowledge, you did choose a specific search. It may be that in this database, because there are not those controlled terms, a loose search might be better for that.
Oh, what's this?
A loose search with the quotation marks
I see.
instead of the curly brackets. There's a lot of playing around with this because there is not the same controlled terms that are going to make things standardized for you. Okay.
Yeah, I might get one or two out of this.
Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and click through one of these article titles and just show you a little bit about what you can find out about articles. The top section is pretty standard: title, author's names, affiliation, abstracts. We have keywords that were provided from the other database. This is from IEEE, so the engineering controlled terms and the uncontrolled terms. I don't know if you can tell here, this one actually misspells the word vehicles, so they are really uncontrolled terms. Like, these are not going to be very useful. And unlike other databases, these are not clickable at all. So these are just, they're helpful, but they're not going to be great. This list down here is the 35 items in this article's bibliography. If they're in Scopus, you can click straight to them. It lists how many times each of these were cited. Even if they're not in Scopus, this article is not in Scopus. This particular publication did not get selected, but still it has been cited 4 times and we're able to see that information there. On the right side, from the bottom up, we have a box for related documents, and this is related based on a commonality of references, so they have references in their list in common. Next is cited by, so the 169 Scopus documents that cited the one we're looking at are listed here, and we can click through and find out more information about these. We can set a citation alert for this article, which will let us know when someone new has cited it. So this may be something you want to do for our own publications eventually. And then the top box is metrics. These are article level metrics. So it's not site score. Site score is just for journals. Instead, we're looking at PlumX metrics, which are an alternative article level metric. It shows kind of the reach of this article, how many people are able to get eyes on this article. It's showing citations, it's showing usage, it's showing captures. It may also show social media posts if that's something that happens with this article. This is just a way for you to understand how this article is making its way out into the world. Okay. Feels like we've all been kind of practicing searching a little bit, but if you want to practice an activity, I have a couple sample searches for you to try. We'll give it maybe like another couple minutes, 2:57-ish, to just try these searches and see if you're able to get close to these searches.
That's really close.
Where would I go to no, sorry.
It's an affiliation country.
What if I want to do Brazil or Brazil with an S?
You can.
Gotta put that in there?
You can. Yeah, I think it is, since Scopus is an English language database, I think they are normalized to Brazil with a Z because
Okay.
they are pretty protective of their metadata as far as that goes, not control terms obviously, but all of these categories. So it should not have options where there's Brazil with an S. Okay. Just because we're running out of time, I will go ahead and show you how I would do these searches. The first one is veterinary science articles from Brazil from 2015 to 2018. So starting with subject areas, it is a health science, veterinary. I'm going to choose the affiliation country, Brazil, left out the and, put that back in. And I'm not going to do anything else here in this advanced search. You can select the years here, but I find it too difficult. So I'm going to go to the limiters instead and select here. This is what it would look like if you wanted to put it in your advanced search. It would say limit to pub year 2018 or limit to pub year 2017 or limit to 1 and so on. But instead I just use the facets and it really worked pretty well. So there are nearly 9,000 articles that meet that search. The other sample search was Open access documents funded by NASA from researchers in Houston. This is an affiliation city, Houston. I'm going to choose my funding sources. And I have done this search already, so I know that I'm going to need two. I'm going to need funding sponsor, NASA, and I'm going to need funding acronym, NASA.
So it's not an affiliation. NASA's not.
If we're looking for ones that they paid for, we're going to look under funding sponsor. A lot of them, I'll show you in a moment, a lot of them actually are from researchers at NASA, which seems a little sketchy, but there's that. So here's 480 results, and we can narrow to open access under access type. There are 107 documents that meet that search. And if this was something I wanted to get an alert for, I could set up my alerts this way, and I would get new notifications when something new from a researcher in Houston, funded by NASA, came out. Quick break for questions before we look at some of our visualization options. Anything pressing right now? Can't see anything in the chat. Okay. So any search that you do, however big, however small, you are able to analyze those search results. And that can be at the maybe 5 article level. It's always helpful to have multiple things to compare. Or we can look at our entire search. So I'm going to use this search that I just did and select all. So if you have a search, no matter which one it is, go ahead and select all. And we're going to analyze the search results using this button right above. This is now giving us a variety of different data comparing the articles in this body on different measures. What's nice is there's a lot of data. We can select by a year range. We have some different options as well in other visualizations. What we do not have the option of doing is changing the way it displays. Scopus defines which type of graph we see for each chart, which is a little frustrating, but you can export the data and create your own graphs and charts. So the one at the top is the number of documents by year, so which year had the most publications for this search. Per year by source, you can select up to 10. These are the most frequent publications in this search result. So the top one has 20 of the 107 articles are from the Astrophysical Journal. When we select up to 10, we have the option of going back to something we've seen before when we compared our journal sources. So when we compared our 2 cancer journals, we're able to do that with the sources listed in this search as well. We can look at documents by authors. This is listing who has written the most of these papers. So this may be, if you're working on a particular subject, who might you reach out to for collaborations? By affiliation, where do these people work? Again, who's doing the kind of work that you're interested in? It is, for the most part, NASA. It also shows some, we looked at Houston only, but this is showing Alkek. We're looking also at co-author affiliations. Same with country and territory. We're looking for research in Houston, but we're seeing other countries because they have co-authors from other countries. Notice again, any of these are clickable, so I can see just these results. We have by type, most of these are articles, a couple of reviews, a few conference papers, and 1 letter. By subject area, we're looking at multidisciplinary work for the most part here, so which other subject areas are being represented. And finally, by funding sponsor. We selected NASA for this one, so obviously that's every paper is funded by NASA. But we also have some other funders as well. So this is maybe another opportunity for you to say, who's paying for the type of research I want to do? Who should I be looking for to give me a grant for what I'm working on? Again, we can export using this export button. The CSV file is going to export essentially this table. So where, even though it says 104 documents, you're not seeing a list of the 104 documents, you're just seeing that NASA has 104 documents. This will allow you to create your own graphs and charts, but you're going to need to drill down a little more if you need a list. And the zip file, again, is showing you the image of these graphs and charts in a couple different formats. That was a little brief section, but I like this one. I like the visualizations. I think they're cool. I think they're useful. Like I said, any search that you do can be analyzed in this way. And obviously it's going to be more or less results, interesting things you can compare. Briefly, I have a quick thing for you to test. You probably already have, I think most of us were following along with this, but just make sure that you understand how we can find out what year the most papers were published, which funding sponsor provided funding for the most documents, and what are some of the related subject areas. So I'll quickly, since we don't have a lot of time, show you that. Which years is this documents by year? So in this case, it is 19 in 2014, 19 in 2017, it's equal. We can also sort here and see that it's equal. The next question was funding sponsors. So this was a search for NASA, so it is going to be NASA. And then the last thing is some of the related subject areas. It's mostly planetary sciences, physics, and astronomy, but some interesting things in here as well. One on immunology. I don't know what they're working on there. Agricultural stuff. Other includes nursing, mathematics, material science. So a lot of multidisciplinary research by these researchers. I'm going to keep trucking along to the last section unless we have any questions. All right. This last section is authors and affiliations. So we can search for topics, or we can look at an individual researcher or an individual institution. And these are separate searches. So document search is going to search by topic, authors is going to search by author, affiliations by organization. Scopus is pretty proud of this disambiguation, the way it has combined authors regardless of how they published, and separated authors even though their names are similar. So this should be a pretty accurate search for the most part. We can search by last name, first name, and affiliation, or by ORCID ID if you happen to know it. So I'm going to do a search here for Denise Trout. We have three options. How do I know which is the right one? It gives me some clues. The first one, if the person has published under a different name, that name will be listed underneath. So there are multiple names for this person. We can also see the affiliation. This is going to be generally the last place this person published. So none of them say Texas State because the one we're looking for has not published apparently at Texas State, or at least what has been published at Texas State didn't make it to Scopus. So that would be another clue we're looking for the right person. These facets might also help if you know that the person you're looking for published in a journal called Clay Minerals. That's going to help you narrow it down as well. This is obviously going to be a much bigger deal for a John Smith or something like that. We can also see under View Last Title the name of their most recent publication. Another clue as to which one is the one we're looking for. It lists here the number of documents that are in Scopus. This is clickable, so I can see what each of these things is. It also has a column for H-index, which we will look at in a moment when we click through. What you may also notice is that this first person is clickable, the second person is clickable, this third person is not clickable. And that is because she only has one document in Scopus. A Scopus profile is not generated until you have two documents in Scopus. So I only have one document in Scopus, so I don't have a profile yet either. Regardless of how many papers you published, they have to be in Scopus for you to have a profile. Turns out the one we want is this second one. And so this is the page for this particular author. If this person had alternate names and published under different names, they would be listed here. We also have the option here for view potential author matches. This is going to show you any as yet unassigned papers by someone with a similar enough name that it could be them. So if you are looking at a John Smith, you might see all the J. Smith papers that haven't yet been assigned to anyone. If you think you found a match, if it's yourself, for example, you can suggest to Scopus that these be combined. It is reviewed by Scopus, but that will allow you to merge accounts. Not accounts, profiles. So in this case, there are none. It shows the subject areas this person published in. Again, since many of these topics are kind of multidisciplinary, they may seem like they don't fit together, but they kind of do. We're looking at documents by author, so this is the 7 that are in there. When we analyze the author output, this is going to be similar to the visualizations we just saw, but for this specific person. So by source, by type, by year, by subject. We can also see that these papers, these 7 papers, have been cited 17 times in Scopus. This citation overview is like the one we saw for the source, which was kind of the table for each publication by year. And we have the author's H index, and I don't have time to get into what that means, but if you click through, there's a good visualization of what the H index means. So not only do you get to see the number, but you can kind of see how it was calculated as well. There it is. The H index is the author level metric that kind of compares the output of authors, where the Plumex metrics maybe is for an article, and the cite score is for a journal. We have citation trends here. So this is, the blue is when the documents were published, the red is when they were cited. This is a list of the documents. They also have the documents that cited this author and a list of the published co-authors. Where you see view them in search results format, this will allow you to analyze these search results in the way we just did with all of the visualizations. This box up here, profile actions, is pretty important for yourself. Is this you? If you find your own profile, you're able to claim it. That means that you take ownership of it. You're able to see what happens. You can make certain changes. And if you request certain changes, they know that it's you, and so they will go ahead with them. You can edit author profile in certain ways, make corrections, change affiliation. Maybe there are some papers that don't belong to you that you want to take out. That's going to allow you to do that there. You can connect to your ORCID ID. What this can do is push content from Scopus to ORCID. This will help populate your ORCID profile. It cannot work the other way. So if there are things on your ORCID ID profile that are not included in Scopus, you can't put them in Scopus. Scopus is limited to what is in Scopus. But you can push and populate your ID profile on the other end. And then, of course, there are some alerts. You can find out when this author has been cited, when this author has published a new document, or just saved to your list of favorite authors. For our last thing today, I would just like you to take a look on yourself if you're in there and claim your profile, or take a look for the Texas State affiliation page. I didn't really talk about affiliations because the page is very similar to the author page. The search is a separate search, but you'll just search by the title of the affiliation and find out what subject area has the highest document count. Claiming the profile, I think, is most important, so that would be the thing I would have you definitely do before the end of this session.
So if you find an article that you wrote, I think it already knows that I knew.
You don't have a profile yet because you only have one document, so you can't claim anything.
Gotcha.
But this is you. Yeah.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
I found John in there.
Before I try to find myself, I've located some useful sources, and I'd like to not lose them.
Okay.
For example, This one, this one, I just check it.
Yep, go ahead and check the ones you like. The easiest thing to do right now would be if you look up at the top a little higher, save to list.
Save it.
So that's just gonna save them to your account. You can name them whatever you want, and then it'll be up in this menu when you come back the next time.
Yeah, I've got a few more others.
Yeah,
See what you want.
so you're gonna wanna
I
have,
don't
you
want
wanna
it.
cancel out of this for now and select everything you want, and then go ahead and save to list. Yeah.
So on those two.
Okay.
This one.
Hopefully you were able to find yourself. If you wanted to, I will show you quickly an affiliation search. So we're on author search, affiliations is right next to it. Again, they're pretty proud of their disambiguation, so it should work pretty well. If you're typing in there, we don't come up. I don't know why.
I just noticed that.
Yeah, we're not in this dropdown. It's unfortunate, but for whatever reason, they also think our main display name should be Texas State, not Texas State University. That's considered an alternate, but there we are. A brief mention of these two different columns here. It's kind of confusing, but affiliation is the thing that's named. Institution is a larger institution around that. So if, for example, a university had a cancer research center, the cancer research center would be the affiliation, the university would be the institution. So that's why those two numbers are sometimes different. Clicking through, we can see, I can follow this affiliation if I'm interested in what else we're working on, but these are the subject areas, and in Scopus, they are mostly social sciences, because that's a broad category. But then medicine, engineering, computer science, psychology. Those are our big areas. All right.
I was focusing on this other.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. Let me wrap it up, and I'll stop the recording, and then we can take a look. So that was everything I was going to talk to you about. It's a lot of content, and we have so much more than we could look at. But hopefully that was helpful. Are there any questions other than specific search questions that we want to answer before we stop the recording?
Are you connected to the library or the School of Science or what?
The library.
The library, so we can come over here from.
Yeah, definitely. If you want to like set up another meeting sometime and we can look through specific things, or also Tricia now is here. She knows how to do it now, so you can talk to her. Definitely, if you want to go through a more specific search, come in and we can all have a meeting if necessary. I don't see any questions on chat either, so hopefully everyone was able to kind of follow along there. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording right now. Thanks, but I'm not going to turn anything off. So if there are people